Welcome to the Money Made Human podcast. It celebrates at its heart the work of credit unions and their vital role in enriching our lives and communities. Brought to you by First Class Credit Union, each episode features insightful discussions revealing the meaningful impact that can be made through economic collaboration. Mostly, it's a collection of compassionate conversations about navigating life and the individual journeys we take. Good morning and welcome to Money Made Human, a podcast by First Class Credit Union. We're delighted today to be joined by an inspiring human, a disability advocate, and his name is Conor McAuley. Conor, we're so glad to have you with us. We've heard such good things about you, have so many questions. Obviously, we want to talk about your work in terms of being a disability advocate, but you're also a content creator. You're just not long back from the European Parliament. I know you've been in New York as well, so much to talk to you about. And you've got a really interesting connection to credit unions, which we'll come back to, a very special connection to credit unions, which we'll come back to. But if we could start, that's not a local accent to Scotland, to Glasgow. You're in Dublin.
That's correct. I'm in Dublin. I'm Irish, so I'm not Scottish, unfortunately.
And you grew up there. Tell me about that. Tell me about growing up in Dublin, in Ireland.
Yeah, so I've grown up in Dublin. I lived there, I'd say, for the first year or two. I actually live about 40 minutes now outside of Dublin. But I'm a Dub, so that's a nice thing to hear.
Okay.
Somebody still thinks I'm still there. But yeah, I grew up in a little tiny town, and it was near the beach. So yeah, it was really nice growing up there. It was very like community sort of feeling. And yeah, it was really nice, especially as, a young kid. I got to have my friends and my pals within my estate. I live in like a housing estate, so yeah, it was really nice, and getting to, see the beach, grow up there and grow up in more so a community sort of based place was really nice. I wasn't in the bustling city, unfortunately.
But you love that. You love Dublin as well.
I love Dublin. I actually love the bustling city and stuff. I think as I've
Sure.
grown older, it's become more of a thing that I want. It's like, okay, I want to live here, or I want to be there, because there's just so much more to do.
Yep. And of course, you've just came back from one of the great cities of the world in New York. How was that?
Yeah, it was great, I have to say. I actually have a sister that lives over there, so I got to go over and see her, which was great to see. It was great to see her and great to see the city. It was unbelievable, I have to say. Like, you got to see the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty. Actually go to the island and actually see the statue. It was great, I have to say, and it was just nice to get away for a couple of days, a change of scene, and yeah, they also had a couple of nice drinks and stuff like that. So I had a few, cocktails, even though over there they
Brilliant.
absolutely ace the drinks. So yeah, but it was a good experience, and it
It
was
was
nice to get
fun.
away for a couple of days. I feel like I was so busy over there, but it was definitely worth it.
And I want to talk to you a bit later on. I saw some videos you'd posted about navigating the New York subway in particular, which I thought was really interesting. But going back to your childhood, what were the kind of moments or people that inspired you along the way whilst you were growing up?
Yeah, I think for me, there's been a lot of inspirations. I would say I was very inspired by people within my community. There was definitely people where, I seen them and thought they were very nice people. I was also very inspired by, culture in general, just celebrity culture and stuff like that. But I think for me at that age, it was a bit harder,
Hmm.
because I have a disability and I didn't really accept it that well. So a lot of stuff I've sort of, blocked out in a sense. So there's certain things I do remember, but there's other things where I'm like, I have no recollection of that. So it's sort of like this weird thing where I've sort of blocked out some memories, because I had a disability, and um it's sort of like a muscle wasting disease, so it gets worse over time. So I think for me, it's sort of like a blocked it out a little bit, in a sense.
I saw online you had posted some little bits of footage of your childhood,
Mhm.
probably as a very small, kind of youngster, but they were kind of beautiful moments
Yeah,
that's been recorded, which I thought was really special. But as you were saying, you've got a disability. You have something called Duchenne, is that
that's
right?
it, Duchenne. Yeah, that's right.
And that's a rare form of muscular dystrophy.
Yeah.
What for our members that might be listening, what does that mean? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, well, for me, it's been something that's in my life. It's been always there. Since I was 3.5, I got diagnosed with the condition, and unfortunately, as time has gone on, it's progressed and it's gotten worse. But I've been lucky. I always say to myself, I've been lucky because if you look up the condition, there's been people out there who have been way worse off than I have. So I got a bit of luck in some sense. But for me, it was a hard process growing up with the condition.
Hmm.
I was in and out of my wheelchair, and then I got to a point where I was a teenager, and I sort of rejected the whole thing, and I sort of said, okay, I want to look as able-bodied as possible because within society, it was always like disabled people weren't seen as valued
Humans.
members. So yeah, yeah, humans, yeah, yeah. So for me, it's been this long process of okay, I've blocked out things, as I said, but I've also as well, seen the beauty of it. Since COVID, for sure, I've definitely, built on what this condition means and what this condition means for other people. And sort of like the look that I've had in a sense, maybe other people wouldn't see it as luck, but I see it as luck. So that's sort of a little brief background of the condition that I have.
You mentioned, Connor, you found it really difficult as you were growing up in terms of, I guess, that might that be looking at what your friends were doing or what was happening in your community. And I wondered how you were able to come to terms with it and be such an inspiration to others. Was there a pivotal moment that changed your outlook on that?
I think as I grew up, I just sort of matured, but also as well, I broke a few bones. So I broke my femur in 2017 or 2018. I would have only been about 16 or 17. But I think from that moment, I sort of led myself on. I went through a really like dark period of time as a teenager before that. But when I broke that, it really had to force me to be sort of someone else because I had to go back in to the chair.
Mhm.
Before that, I would sort of hide it away. So I had to go back into the chair and sort of live this new life. And then I sort of started to realize that there's a super sort of power that comes along with it. It's not all bad. There's also good as well. I
Mhm.
think for me, after coming back into the chair, it sort of gave me a bit more independence because before that, my parents and stuff like that or friends were afraid that I would fall and I couldn't pick myself back up off the ground. So yeah, I think for me, through that break, I think that's where my mind sort of changed. I think as well when COVID came, it gave me time to think. I don't think I would have had that time to think. I know it was a very sad time for a lot of people, but
Mhm.
for me, I actually got a benefit from it, or it was a positive for me because I got to see and sort of think a bit more what the world is all about.
And able to reflect on it a bit more and that kind of quietness of what COVID brought to us.
Yeah.
Were there people around you that were a constant support though? You talked about your parents, and we're very fortunate at First Class to know your mum and dad, and I guess they'll have been a constant presence in your life.
Yeah, for sure. I would say, especially my mom, she was always at home and she always, did everything. My dad went out and worked, but he was a support as well. But I think for me, have my mom there was just, the best thing I could have had. She was always there to support me and was always there to sort of lead me on in a positive way. I think for me, so it would have mostly been my parents. I think I had, other family. I had, aunties, uncles, cousins. But I think when you live with someone with the condition, it's a bit different than, when you're not living with them. You only see little parts of it. You don't see the whole
Hmm.
thing. So I think for me, it was really my mom and then my dad as well, who really, led me on and really kept me positive and kept me going. And they made my life very normal as well.
Hmm.
I know a lot of people would be like, what is a normal life? But in a sense, it was very just rooted in, good things. And yeah, it was very just normal. And I think that's why I've turned out the way that I am as well, is because they were there and they were sort of there to guide me. I sort of got to see they didn't treat me as someone with a disability, but they just treated me as just another
It's
ordinary
Conor.
person. Yeah, as Connor. So I got to see sort of, what it's like to be in that position. And I also had two sisters as well. So it was, a family of five.
A busy household. I asked your mum and dad yesterday how they would describe you in 3 words, and it was your dad had sent me a message, and he said that you were strong, gentle, and brilliant. And I wondered what you think of those words, and I wondered how you would describe them back in 3 words.
Yeah, I think for me, those words are really kind and really nice. I would say I'm definitely gentle. I'd say for sure. I don't like hurting people or I don't like, confrontation or anything. Brilliant, I would say in some senses, yeah, in some ways. But strong, I don't know. I think I am strong most of the time, but sometimes I'm not. So there definitely is weakness there. And I think some people would say, oh, he's strong because he has this disability. But for me, there still is different parts of myself where I'm working on for sure.
Hmm.
What would I describe them as? Is that the way I should
Yeah.
put it?
Oh,
Um,
how would you describe your mum or your dad in 3 words?
yeah, I would describe my mom as definitely, strong. I would say that as well. I'd say she's strong. I'd say she's very caring as well. She's a very caring person,
Hmm.
and yeah, she's just very ditzy in a sense. So she's very funny. I don't know if she notices that, but she's just very
Hmm.
funny and she doesn't mean to be. But my dad, I would say about him, he's very level-headed. He definitely knows what he wants and he definitely goes there. He's very funny as well. Like he knows that he tries to wind me up something terrible. And he gets away with it and he's very he has very good like charm, I would say. So, anyone who
Hmm.
meets him is like, oh my God, that's David. He's very funny and he definitely, puts the charm on for sure.
I can see in that combination of both your mum and dad why you are so strong and values driven, and you come across as a really kind, thoughtful human, Connor, if I may say so.
Thank you.
Talking about your disability a bit more, if we can,
Of course.
have there ever been times where people have misunderstood you as a result of that, or you've felt misunderstood, and is that frustrating?
Yeah, it definitely is frustrating. I've been misunderstood a lot of times in my life. I've definitely hid away and people would ask me questions of, why do I do this or why do I do that? And I couldn't answer. I remember when I was young, I would just freeze and I wouldn't be able to answer the question. So definitely for me, it's been this sort of thing where, you know, there's been experiences, but it's been mostly so questions in a sense where people have asked me certain things and I've froze. But I think for me, I've sort of shut out people. I've found it really easy to do that instead of having to explain the hard questions or the hard answers. And I think I was very hard on myself growing up. I wasn't the way that I was now. So I was more so, okay, people won't understand, or okay, you're doing this because there's a reason why. But I definitely shut a lot of people out, and it was easier to do than, let them in. So I definitely have avoided hard conversations over the years.
Have you encountered barriers as you've been navigating life that I guess you've perhaps encountered and had to overcome, and what has helped you with those? And I guess those might be different types of barriers. I saw a physical one which really made me stop and think when you had done a little reel on social media about a parked car on a pavement, on a
Mm,
pathway,
yeah.
which causes such inconvenience for someone that might be in a wheelchair. So, I know that might be a physical barrier, but has there been other barriers that you've also faced?
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely had barriers to education. I've dyslexia myself, so I've always
Okay.
found it a bit difficult and a bit hard sometimes to, concentrate and focus, especially when I was in school. So I didn't do that great in school. I'm definitely lucky to be where I am now. But yeah, I think for me, I had really barriers, trying to do that. I had to go in different ways and different routes. Definitely do, lower courses. In Ireland, we have PLC courses. So they're just a little bit different than your typical college course. Sometimes they would be a preparer for college, or they'd be in sort of community-led local colleges, they would say, instead of these like big, huge colleges, like Trinity College, I'd say you've heard of.
Hmm.
So yeah, for me, that was a big barrier, was trying to actually get into education and try be okay with that. Also, as well, trying to get employment through that, because sometimes in an interview I would panic and I'd be like, oh, I can't remember anything. I need to have this or I need to have that. So that's been a bit of a barrier as well, has just been trying to, get into the workforce. And I've been very lucky with the freelance work I've done. I've definitely done a lot of that, but also as well, it's been a challenge trying to get a full-time job.
What interests you in terms of working and employment? What kind of subjects are you interested in working in?
Yeah, for me, I definitely, I studied media and broadcast in college, and I studied cinematography as well. So I definitely love the creative side of things. I think for
Okay,
me, that's something that I really like and I really love to do. So definitely, creating content on social media, or doing other type of work such as designing. I love to like design reports, and I love to do stuff like that. So for me, I definitely, take more into account my sort of vision of things instead of my sort of like other type of work that I would do. But yeah,
like
it's fun.
creativity.
Yeah, creativity. That's
Yeah,
the exact words. That's the
yeah,
word that came to me. But yeah, no, creativity is exactly what
that's
it
your
is.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, creativity is definitely my thing. And I've definitely, gone into roles where I've sort of had to dim that in a sense, because it's, a working environment. But yeah, I think my definite goal would be to get in somewhere really creative. I did an internship in the national broadcaster in Ireland, so that's RTE. So sort of like what you guys have with BBC. But I think that was one of my favorite experiences, because I got to, live in that and sort of take into account everything that I sort of had to offer. So that was really
Sure.
good.
I love the way that you have used creativity to bring awareness to those with disabilities. You've done that on social media and through content creation, and which has led you to the European Parliament and all sorts of places. Are there things that you wish people knew about your condition or about muscular dystrophy that you're trying to bring to light through your creativity?
Yeah, I wish people knew a lot more about muscular dystrophy, or my condition, especially Duchenne. I think a lot of people don't know about it. It's a rare condition.
What's the difference, Connor, between the two?
So muscular dystrophy is, I don't think anybody really has just muscular dystrophy. I think there's different types of muscular dystrophy.
Okay,
So I know Duchenne is the actual worst version of muscular dystrophy, unfortunately.
okay.
But there's other types of muscular dystrophy, like there's Becker's muscular dystrophy, there's SMA. There's just a lot of different types of muscular dystrophy. So it's hard to sort of define it in one.
And what through the work you do on social media, what are you trying to kind of bring to light through that, through your creativity? Is it for people to be treated equally and as humans? Is it to understand the condition more? What's your message?
Yeah, for me, my message would be I want to just show people who live with my condition that, you can live a life and you can also, do things. I think a lot of people look at this condition and they're like, it's all just medical stuff all the time, and that's a
Mm,
big issue. Like I want to show people that you can live and you can live a life as well. I mean, your life may be different, but it's definitely a worthy life for sure, and that's what I want to show, especially the young kids. I had nobody to sort of look up to when I was that age,
mhm,
so having somebody maybe like me who they could see would be a great thing.
mhm,
I feel.
mhm,
Because I always say if I help at least one person, I'll be happy. That's just my goal.
mhm,
So if I was able to do that, I would just be happy. But yeah, I want to show that, you can live with this condition. I also want to raise awareness for those who may not have a voice
mhm,
and sort of show that this condition, it won't define me as well. I think that's the
mhm.
big thing. I'm definitely a lot more than just Duchenne, believe me.
No, I love that. In terms of Duchenne and muscular dystrophy, it's a progressive
Hmm.
condition.
Yeah.
What has that meant for you in terms of your life? Has that been a frustrating thing to come to terms with? Um,
Yeah, for sure. It's been very frustrating. I think for me, it's hard to understand, why this happens inside your body, That's
uh-huh,
the thing. It's very confusing. Like, growing up, I always heard of, somebody getting a condition or somebody, getting something later in life, and you have sort of like a time period. With Duchenne, you don't really have that, your time will eventually come like anybody else, but it's a progressive disease, so it's sort of scary as well. I find it
yeah,
very scary because you just don't know from one day to the next how you'll be.
yeah,
So it's scary because I want to be as active and do everything for as long as possible, but I don't know when there'll be a time where I won't be able to do that. So it's more so confusing, and it definitely has messed with my mental health in a sense because I
yeah.
just don't know when these things are coming. So yeah, it's more so confusing than anything else. And it is a bit, sad in a sense, for me and myself. But that's why I always say to people, you have to live in the moment as much as possible. I
Hmm.
always say this thing where, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow. Nobody really knows when their time will
No,
come.
no, that this is true. And I think that's why your words and actions are so inspiring to others. Again, on one of your social media platforms, you had raised I think it was directed to people with disabilities and with conditions like yourself, and you had said that whilst it might be difficult, there's beauty in the moment.
For sure.
That really stood out for me, Connor, because we all get hung up on whatever we're navigating. And it really was a powerful reminder that we must stop and appreciate the beauty and the good things in life too.
That's it for sure. And you have to, sometimes stop and say, wow, I'm actually very lucky. There's a lot of people out there who may not have a home or may, not have food on their table every day. So that's
Hmm.
something I have to be, grateful for. I have to see like, okay, I have this. I'm lucky in a sense. And I think that's why with my condition I've said, I'm lucky because I look at other people with the condition, same age as me, and they're not doing as well. I think it's just about sometimes you have to put things into perspective and say, wow, maybe I am lucky in a sense.
Do you practice gratitude? Do you consciously think about being grateful and looking at the power of the small things? Do you, is that something you've kind of trained yourself to do?
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely done that. And there can be times where I'm not like that, I can
Of
be sort of
sure.
negative or, have just human emotions. So yeah, I think for me though, I like to think positive and I like to say, okay, put things into perspective in a sense. And I like to write as well. Sometimes I may lose that train of thought and, get very down or get very emotional about things. And I can actually go back to my own sort of writings that I've wrote over the years and, look at that and say, okay, this has given me a bit more, positivity again. So yeah, for sure. I'm very like reflective on things.
What kind of things would you write?
Yeah, for me, I'd write about my condition, my own story. So I hope through my own story, other people can, find some meaning or common purpose from it. So I'd write about my experience growing up or my experience as a teenager. I'd also write about experiences that I've gone through and how I've sort of coped and dealt with that.
Hmm.
So definitely a lot of different writing stuff that I would do. I would definitely, write about my condition, but also write about me personally and, how I've sort of overcome some obstacles.
What's been the biggest obstacle you've had to get through?
I think for me, it's been becoming a full-time wheelchair user. I think that was always a big obstacle because I always seen, the world wasn't made for me, so I had to try to be somebody else. So, yeah, I think for me, that was the biggest obstacle. It was definitely hard, adjusting to that life, not walking around, full-time anymore. It was definitely different, but it's given me a lot more positives than negatives than I would have thought when I first went in full-time into the chair at the time.
Hmm.
So I'd definitely say that was one of my biggest challenges. I think as well, keeping relationships with people and trying to keep that up because sometimes I would be like in my head, oh, I have too much going on. I can't deal with this half the time myself. How is somebody else going to deal with this? So that's been another challenge is trying to keep, personal relationships with people. And I actually do like being, by myself and alone, and I like doing stuff myself, but I also do like to be around people. So that's been another work in progress.
And you talked about becoming a wheelchair user, and I saw this fascinating clip of you in New York navigating the subway. Tell me about that. One of the
Yes.
busiest cities in the world.
Yeah, so me with New York, I actually went to New York in 2025, the start of 2025, and I didn't try the subway that time. I sort of avoided it. So
Hmm.
when I got a little bit more comfortable with the place, I, spent a couple of days there. I was like, okay, I can do this the next time. That's one of my goals is to go on the subway. So this time I got on the subway. It's actually not too bad though, because you can check online which subway stations are accessible.
Okay.
So I just got to check which subway stations are accessible, and I was like, okay, we'll go on this one, and then we'll go to the next one as well. So I, go down to the subway station, I get on, it's all sort of flat, so there's actually a wheelchair sort of boarding area, which I thought was really cool, that I could get on and go in. But the only one bad experience I had with the subway this time was a broken lift. So
Okay.
I literally got off. There was a broken lift the day before it was working, and it was like, oh, that's not shown in my video though. That was a different video, unfortunately, of one of the other days I was on the subway. But I got there and I had to get back on the subway and then get off at a different stop. But I think the thing with me is sometimes I forget because I'm in Ireland and our transport system isn't very good, our public transport system. So in my head, I was thinking, okay, I can get off here and walk an extra 10, 15 minutes. But in Ireland, I'd have to stay on for like another hour until,
Sure.
I'm at one of the train stations where I can call somebody to get me a ramp.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't too bad. It was actually a good experience. I didn't see anybody who was, crazy or anything on the subway because I've heard stories before. But yeah, I actually felt like it was a really cool experience. And for me, it went smooth most of the time.
Although I did see a clip that said not all of the subway stations can be
Yeah.
navigated with a wheelchair, which I kind of thought was I was a bit shocked about that, given it's 2026,
Mm.
and that should probably be the case.
Yeah, they should all be accessible for sure. And,
Yeah,
I always think from an Ireland point of view, and that's my problem actually. It's sort of like, oh, in Ireland, you have to call for the ramp. So with the subway, the great thing was, you could get off, it was a level platform. But in Ireland, I'd have to, book 24 hours or 48 hours in advance, if I was to get off a train, not in a main train station. So for me, I found it great, but you're right. It's 2026. We need to make sure all stations are accessible, and that goes for,
yeah.
New York, which is a huge city. You sometimes forget that. But also other places around the world. It's not good enough in this day and age.
No, no, totally. I thought it was shocking when I saw that. And you've also recently come back from the European Parliament, where I think you were speaking about, I guess, equality and disability awareness. And tell me about that experience.
Yeah, I've actually been to the Parliament 3 or 4 times now.
Okay.
So I've been a lot, and I've definitely, got my grips with that place. But it's really cool, I have to say. You know, it was really great being able to sort of share my experience. It was actually my experience of a project I did, but I was talking about the accessibility of it. So I got to speak in front of a couple of people. It was in one of like a breakout room, but it was really cool, and I was a part of the European Youth event as well, which was really great. Being able to say I spoke at that is amazing. But yeah, it's definitely really great, and it's really cool to see inside. But for me, getting that experience and saying to people, you know, I got to speak in the European Parliament is pretty cool, I have to say. But it's definitely a place worth visiting for sure, even if you're, you know, in Scotland.
How did that come about, Connor? How did you get involved with that?
Yeah, so I got involved with that actually in 2020. So that's when I started actually my social media journey as well. So one of the organizations in my country, so the National Youth Council of Ireland, they seen my social media posts and they got in touch with me and sort of said to me, here, do you want to be a part of a project? It was called Hear My Truth, and it was about 12 different people speaking about issues. So say for me, I could have spoke about a different issue, not just disability, and
Okay.
somebody else in the group could have talked about disability, so sort of vice versa. So that's how I got involved, and then through that, I was able to travel abroad to different places in Europe. I got to attend the sort of like youth events across Europe. I got to go to different countries, and that's sort of how it all happened. It was sort of an by accident in a sense because I didn't know I could do any of this, and then it sort of all just came to me. So yeah, that was really cool being able to get to be able to do like youth stuff and all, and I've been able to do a lot through that. So that's how my opportunities have sort of come. I'm sort of aging out of it a little bit though. That's the problem. So I think I don't know if I'll
You're
get as much
getting
opportunities
old.
as I will. Yeah.
Oh, I can only imagine your work, your advocacy helps other families that might have a recent diagnosis. And I wonder if that's a kind of key pillar of your, your goals that you want to help other families in particular.
Yeah, for sure. That's my goal and that's my mission is just to, you know, help other families. And as I say, if one person gets something from my social media posts who has the condition, that's my job done. You know, that's what I've always said to myself. But it's great. I've got to talk to families who have had diagnosis,
Hmm.
or I've been able to speak to families who have had kids, you know, who have Duchenne and who have had Duchenne over the years. So yeah, it's been great. And I think a lot of those families have, you know, gotten a bit of inspiration from me, which is great. You know, I've heard
Of
stories from
course.
them where their kids see my videos and they're like, wow, you know, I'd love to do that. Or, you know, Connor's like, you know, really cool guy. But yeah,
Inspiring.
I don't know, inspiring. Yeah, inspiring is the right word.
Yeah.
And I know some people with disabilities may see, you know, they want to be like everybody else. They don't want to, you know, be seen as inspiring. But for me, my mission was always just to help the families and, you know, show them that there's more to life than just Duchenne. So
Hmm.
yeah, I actually like that word. I know a lot of people don't, but yeah, I think it is a nice thing to be called inspiring. And I think I hope anyway that I've given a lot to those families over the years and hopefully they've gotten something from my content.
I can only imagine as a mum myself that it must feel like a kind of lifeline to hear
Yeah.
you and see your stories, and especially if there's been a recent diagnosis, I imagine it is like a kind of lifeline for them.
For sure, yeah, and I've definitely gotten messages, you know, where kids have had diagnosis and stuff like that, and they see my content, they're like, "Wow." I think one thing though I'd always say to people is just try not base my experience on their
Yeah,
experience they're gonna have,
sure.
because a lot of people are like, you know, oh, I want my kid to be exactly like you, and I'm like, you
Yeah,
know, let your kid be what they're gonna be. You know,
yeah.
I want to inspire people, but just make sure they live their own lives as well. You know, that's a big thing. But I've also gotten to meet a lot of people through social media as well.
Hmm.
So different countries and stuff like that throughout Europe, or people who may have my condition or different disabilities or families. You know, families have got in touch with me not just from Ireland but all around the world. So it's crazy.
What can we all do to help? Firstly, in terms of understanding Duchenne and muscular dystrophy, and secondly, just in terms of supporting people with disabilities, how can we be better citizens, if you like?
I think really a lot of disabled people have been let down in society over the years. You know, people have good intentions, but unfortunately, they haven't always been shown. So I just say, be kind to people with disabilities.
Hmm.
Don't make them feel like they're a burden.
Hmm.
That's a big thing. If they get on public transport and they need a bit of a hand, just ask. Don't automatically, grab their chair or whatever.
Yeah,
So yeah, just be kind to them and be nice and, don't see them as a burden. That's the big thing. But Duchenne, really, I would say it is so rare that a lot of people don't know about it, but it needs to be raised. The awareness needs to be raised. We've had a big thing in our country. There's a drug called Gaviscon. So a lot of kids are hoping to get that funded because it will help them with the condition. But unfortunately, our government here won't fund it because it's too expensive. So stuff like that, I think awareness needs to be raised if, there's drugs out there that, these kids may get a benefit from. I think that's something that needs to be raised. I also think as well with Duchenne, just to see that it is a condition and yeah, it is out there. So it is rare, but I think it is great to raise awareness of it. And what you can do through that is, look up on social media people who have Duchenne and maybe share their content, share their posts. You can share my posts if you want. But yeah, I think it's just to raise more awareness, but also be kind to people with disabilities.
I love that, Connor. Now, we're a credit union based in Glasgow.
Yeah.
You have a special connection to a credit union in Ireland. Ireland's oldest credit union, actually, Denor, and your dad is the CEO there.
Yeah, he is indeed. He's the CEO there. I've had Denora in my life for about 10 years now. I think he joined in 2015 or 2016. So I know a lot about credit unions and I've worked in Denora over the years as well. So, I think it's great though because it's very like community based and
Sure.
community led. I think it's great getting to know people and a lot of people don't realize what their credit unions are sort of all about, but that's what it is all about, community. And my dad definitely has taught me that through the credit union over the years. He
Yeah.
sort of said to me, this is how it works, or he's told me stories of, members coming in and them having a laugh or having a joke and the community events he's done as well. So yeah, it's been in my life for about 10 years, but it's really cool. I really like credit unions.
So you're a credit union stalwart yourself, Connor. You're a champion of credit unions yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a champion of credit unions. I like credit unions, and I think I wouldn't have understood what they were all about before my, dad was in that position, and I don't think he would have either, to be honest.
Hmm.
So it's been a whole process of sort of learning and realizing sort of how important they are to a community. It's definitely, different than a bank, which I would have thought would have been very similar
Hmm.
to a bank years ago. But yeah,
It's
I'm a
very
champion of credit unions.
people
Yeah.
focused. Yeah,
It's very people orientated, and I feel like the credit unions they really care, and
yeah.
that for different circumstances they will definitely put things into account. So yeah, there's a lot there that I could talk about
One last question on credit unions. Has your dad ever said this phrase in your house, do more with the more?
all the time. All the time. It was fun at the start, and now it's like, come on, we need a new slogan here. But yeah, no, he said that to me many times, and do more with the door. And it's funny because we actually, where we live, there's actually a place closer to us called the Nor. So whenever I'm like, my dad works in the North, and they're like, oh, is it that place that's really close to you? And I'm like, no, it's in Dublin. It's very much in the city. So yeah, but I've heard that phrase. I don't know how many times.
We adore your dad and your mum. We've got to meet both of them, and it's brilliant to have that connection with Ireland's oldest credit union. What's your hopes for the future, Connor? We've got some quick questions coming up. Our team are going to join us in a moment, but what's your hopes for the future? What's your goals? I imagine there's things you want to achieve.
Yeah, for sure. I think my goals really basically are I sort of want to move out and I want to live in my own house. I want to be able to hopefully, get a full-time job and sort of just live happily. That's just my main goal. It is hard in this economy and especially because, I do have a disability. It is harder sometimes to access things. So one of my main goals is, own my own house and yeah, do that. But also as well, own my own car. I want to learn how to drive.
Okay,
Adaptions are very expensive in Ireland. I know in England it works a little bit differently with mobility, but in Ireland it's very different.
okay,
So unfortunately, a lot of my goals are, based on, money and stuff like that. But
sure.
I'll eventually get there. That's the thing. But unfortunately, sometimes money makes life easier, and in my case,
Hmm.
it would make life easier. So it would be those three things. I'd like to travel more as well. I'd like to be able to travel a bit more around the world. So I've been lucky. I've been to a lot of places, but I'd also like to go to further afield places like, Australia, New Zealand,
Hmm.
maybe even like Hong Kong, China, places like that, I think would be really cool. So they're sort of my goals, but I also want to keep raising awareness. I think that's my main thing.
Yeah.
As I say, if I affect one person, that's a great goal done. But I'd like to sort of, hopefully build on it and sort of raise awareness to more people.
And I can't let you go. I know we're going to do a few questions in a moment, but that's a football shirt in the background, I
It is
believe.
indeed.
And I think it's a Liverpool one, is that right?
It's Liverpool. You can see it behind. It's a little bit blurred, but yeah, everybody, whenever I'm on a call, they recognize it. So yeah, I'm a big Liverpool fan. I've been a big Liverpool fan all my life, and yeah, I've been over to Anfield a couple of times now. So yeah, I'm a big football fan, to be fair. So I love a bit of football.
And the Scotland captain, Andy Robertson, has just left Liverpool, which I
Yeah.
imagine was quite an emotional loss for Liverpool fans.
It was indeed, Andy Robertson, he's been there since like 2017, and
Hmm.
he's definitely won the trophies, he's won the lot. So it was hard seeing him leave. I really respect him, and I really think he's a great athlete as well.
Hmm.
He only joined for a little small fee. I think it was 7 or 8 million, which in football terms,
It's
that's a small
nothing.
fee. In
It's
real life,
nothing.
that's not a small fee.
Now, listen, we're just going to welcome some of our team who we've got some questions and answers for you. Hi,
Okay.
guys.
Hi, Connor. So we
Hey
have
guys.
5 questions from the team. Some are life questions, some are kind of worky questions. So we'll just go through them just now. So
Yeah.
first question is from me. What are you listening to, watching, or reading right now? Or is there anything you would recommend?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I actually love like TV. I definitely love music as well. So I definitely listen to like a range of music. There's actually like a good vibes playlist that I've been listening to on Spotify at the moment.
Oh,
So there's
nice.
definitely been like, a mix of songs that I definitely recommend. It's been sunny in Ireland the last few days, so it's been nice to
Yeah,
listen to that
same.
and have a bit of joy. But TV wise, I was watching actually Ted season 2. So Ted as a TV show. I know some people would know the movie, so that was very funny. It was very, stupid humor. Some things would just be like, "What's going on here?" But I would definitely recommend that to anybody who likes, stupid humor or likes things that are just sort of out there. And also as well, I've been watching Beef. I don't know if anybody's heard of that. It's on Netflix, but that's really good. It sort of reminds me a bit of White Lotus, if anybody's seen that out there. But
Mm.
yeah, that is really good as well. So they would be the sort of two I'd recommend.
Cool. Share the
Thank you.
playlist, Connor.
I will do. I'll share the playlist indeed. I
I was
think they
just gonna
update it
say
like every week or something.
we've got a work playlist, so
We
if you
do.
can share us the
No
link,
way.
then
I love that.
we can play it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So the next question is, where is the best place you have traveled to?
That's a really good question, actually. I've definitely traveled a lot around, so there could be a lot of answers I could give here. But I think for me, the best place that I've ever been to was Florida. I was in Orlando
Wow.
when I was a young kid, but it was so cool, getting to see the theme parks and the shops. Like they had these outlet shops and everything was like, pennies. It was crazy. So I'd definitely say, Florida was my favorite place I've been to for those reasons, and the beaches as well. All the beaches were just class, and the sun, of course.
Oh,
Perfect. Thank you. So the third question we have is, what is your biggest source of motivation on hard days?
well, that's a
Yeah,
good question.
good question. It's a
Yeah.
good question. I think for me, my biggest source of motivation would be sort of experiences that I've gone through or other people with disabilities have gone through. I would sort of think of those and sort of say to myself, okay, there's worse days than this, and I would sort of try to drag myself out of it. It would be through experiences that I would sort of be like, okay, there could be worse out here. So that's sort of how I sort of, deal with the dark days or the bad days is think about my luck and think about, how I've been able to do all these things in my life where maybe when I was younger I wouldn't have imagined.
Hmm. That's good.
So the next question is, if you could change one standard thing in the workplace to make it fully inclusive, what would it be?
Well, make sure everything's accessible, I think.
Yeah.
That would be my,
Yeah.
sort of answer. It'd be sort of like, I'd like to make sure everything's accessible and everybody can be, a part of the workplace. I think that's a big thing. And especially for those who may need adoptions, I think, they should be able to have those adoptions because I think everybody should be, encouraged and able to work. Unfortunately, for some people, it's not a possibility, but access for, the majority of people would be great.
No,
Yeah.
definitely. And the final question from our team is, what does a perfect fun day look like for you?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think a perfect day for me would definitely be, a day out somewhere. I have a very bad sweet tooth, so definitely, go out somewhere, get an ice cream or, some type of cake of some sort, anything flavored ice cream or chocolate cake, anything like that would be great on a day.
My goodness,
And
Connor, you'll be perfect here.
I would be. Unfortunately, though, sometimes I have to stop myself. So sometimes I'd be there and I'd be like, how am I going to stop myself? There's always sweets and cakes here. So for me, yeah, it would be, going out, getting a sweet treat and going out in the car somewhere on a drive. Definitely, looking at the beach and just looking at the waves. I do love music and I love concerts as well. So maybe in the evening, it would be a concert, an outdoor concert on a sunny day would be just the best. Fun. I was going to say crack, but I don't know if you guys know what that
Yeah,
is.
we
Yeah.
Like
know.
an Irish
We
term,
know.
that's a crack. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That
We
sounds amazing.
we would call it banter here. We would call it the Glasgow banter.
of course. And I know I've never actually been to Scotland, and I'd love to go.
You've not?
No, I've never
Connor?
been. I've heard. I don't know if that's true. What you guys apparently fry loads of things, so you go to the
Yeah.
chippy and
Yeah.
you can get all the fried stuff. So I'd love to try that.
We we have a specialty locally where we can deep fry Mars bars. I know.
Why?
We put the Mars bar in a batter and then deep fry it in oil.
Yum.
So
I'd
bad.
love to try it. I'd love to say, I tried that, but yeah, I'd definitely love to come to Scotland and even see the historic stuff as well, because there's a lot there, I'd like to see,
Hmm.
and I have a few friends in Scotland, so yeah, it'd be cool.
And you have more friends now. You'll have to come
Yeah,
over.
exactly.
You'll
I have
have to
more
come
friends
over.
now. I can come over and visit you guys.
So listen, I've got one last question for you, and it actually comes from David and Tanya McAuley, your mum and dad. Their question for you is firstly, well, it's actually two questions. One is, how do you do it? And secondly is, do you know how inspiring you are?
How do I do it? I just get up every day and just go with my life. That's it, there's nothing sort of special about it, That's just the way that I am, and you just have to pick yourself up and keep going. I always just say keep going is the main thing, and if life throws you obstacles, um, it's just important to see those obstacles as something that you have to just overcome or something that you have to live with, like my disability, but you can make the most out of it for sure.
Mhm.
But for the most inspiring part, I'm inspiring at times, that's the thing, I do stuff and maybe I'm a very Irish person where I don't give myself credit. I'm like, I'm too modest. I'm like, I don't really want to
We
do
have
that.
we
But
have that in Scotland too.
I should
Modest.
have guessed. Us and the Scottish are very similar, to be honest. So yeah, yeah. For me, I'm very modest, so I'll take that as a compliment, though. I'm very inspiring. I don't know how I'm very inspiring, but yeah, I just sort of take it on the chin and just keep that going. So yeah, I'm inspiring, but that's just life. You just have to keep going, I guess.
I don't know if you know, but the whole backstory to Money Made Human is a kind of story about life and loss and love. And I
Hmm.
just think it's so beautiful that your mum and dad are saying you're inspiring. I can't think of anything more
Yeah.
important, or better in the world actually to have. So I hope that's nice for you to hear.
It is for sure. I think for me, like sometimes you forget it because you're, in a family setting and you're not always going to say these things to yourself to
No,
other people in your family.
no.
So yeah, it is nice, I'll take it on the chin and, remember that anyway, if we're ever having an argument or fighting or whatever, I'll be like,
Remember that.
yeah, just keep that in the back of my head.
Conor, it has been such a privilege to have you on our podcast. What a guy. We're inspired. And thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, Conor McAuley.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Money Made Human podcast. We're grateful to spend time with you and hope you enjoyed it. If you want to join a credit union, choose us. With love, until the next time, First Class Credit Union.